Age of Empires 4 has just come out, and with it we get 8 full-featured factions to dive in on. Each one with their own unique mechanics, soundtrack, aesthetics, and even the English getting a passive bonus to Terrible Cuisine. But in this video today, we'll be covering the third in our series by talking about the Rus, a faction with a very diverse military but also extremely strong early defensive and late game gunpowder units. I've covered this in my ranking guide to help give you an overview of each faction, which you can find linked in the upper right corner. The way this video is structured, we'll be going over a general overview of the faction, discuss the unique units, go into the technology specific to the civilization, talk about each landmark through the ages, quickly go over the navy, and then close the video out talking about army compositions, build orders, or what units thrive. You can quickly navigate to each topic mentioned by using the chapters linked in both the timeline and the description if you so please. And if you'd like to see the other guides, they'll be linked at the end of this video to my playlist that will have each guide as I create it. It'll also be linked in the pinned comment. If this is the first time on my channel, the way I like to do things is upfront the information within, so you can decide to stick around to hear me out on my explanations. So with that being said, the Rus are hailed as an S-tier civilization right now. And if you've played any multiplayer games, you're bound to run into them, and there's a lot of great reasons why. Unlike the HRE, French, and English, they break the mold of the standard Age of Empires format of gameplay. You generate gold by hunting any animals across the map, acting as a quick means of getting gold in the early age while your villagers gather food. This also increases your bounty, which will also then increase how much gold is generated from your hunting cabins, as well as how fast your villagers gather. Also, their wooden fortresses, which replace the outpost of the other factions, boosts the wood production of any lumber camp in their radius, which is good because the Rus get fortified palisades, which replace normal palisades with a whopping 3,000 health. Also, the production of their hunting cabins allows them to gain a passive 250 gold income from just simply being built near some trees. Militarily, the Rus have one of the most diverse unit sets, with access to knights in Age 2, devastating Streltsy gunpowder units, horse archers, and warrior monks mounted on horseback that buff units around them. Honestly, the Rus are just such a powerhouse that can turtle against early rushes easily and come out of the late game with fast firing artillery, strong gunpowder units, and knights with some of the highest damage in the game. So that's all you wanted to know. Feel free to head on out, but before you do, don't forget to comment, like, or subscribe to the channel. Each one of those things helps out in varying degrees, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Well, let's get started here on our Rus Civilization Guide. Привет, brata. Now let us go over the overview of the Rus, and we talked about this just a little bit, but let's expand on it with some other bigger, broader details. And the Rus are a very crazy faction when it comes to their cool hunting bounty mechanic. And the way that this really works is anytime you kill a sheep, deer, wolf, or boar, you're going to get gold of either 5, 10, 25, or 75 respectively. And that will accumulate towards your bounty. And as you kind of increase your hunter's boon, bounty as it is called, you have tiers 1, 2, and 3. And that will increase your food gather speed for all of your villagers by 5, 10, or 15%, depending upon the tier. And then the hunting cabins, which you can generate, which we'll talk about in a sec, will then create or generate gold for you faster. They normally do it every 30 seconds, but they'll do it every 27 to 24 to 18 seconds at tier 3. Now, these hunting cabins can be placed anywhere on the map, and essentially for however much wood is in the area that you generate the cabin with, that's how much gold they'll produce every handful of seconds. And that gold is pretty intense. So basically you're capped out at 250 that all of the cabins can create per tick, as it were. But at tier 3 you can have something like 833 gold generated every minute. So you can see that these hunting cabins can really take off. And the nice thing about them too is, like I said, that you place them and the amount of wood in their area will generate the amount of gold. Well, you can still harvest all that wood and it'll still generate the gold for you. So you don't have to worry about not harvesting wood in certain places. So economically, you can see that the Rus really take off. And when it comes to food production, their fishing ships are all their attack ships and their demolition ships and everything else. They can swap their ships around as they see fit. They press a button and it swaps over to a transport ship or over to an attack ship or a demolition ship. Doesn't matter, you just press a button and it's done. And their fishing ships don't need to dock. They just simply gather the food, they hit 40 carry capacity, and then it just deposits into your stockpile. So you can see there's a lot of strength there, especially if you are trying to get a lot of food early on a on an island map. Now, militarily, the Rus are very interesting because they have an extremely diverse roster. They get spearmen, they get men-at-arms, but in the second age, they get access to heavy knights, which is quite nice. This is the only other faction that gets access to an early knight, with the French getting access to the royal knight in the second age. But then they also progress into getting access to archers, crossbowmen, like you would imagine, but they also get horse archers. They're the only faction that gets a quote-unquote straight horse archer. The Mongols get Manjadai or Mengadai, and then the Abbasids get their camel archers, and the Delhi Sultanate gets their archers on top of elephants. So these are the only just horse archers, quote-unquote, in the game as far as the unit's title goes. And lastly, they get Streltsy, which are very strong gunpowder units that can do more damage the longer they're just in place, up to a total of 30% bonus to their damage. It's really significant. And when it comes to their religious units, they get a really awesome Warrior Monk. Now, this is probably one of the best units for the Rus, because what it'll do is it'll increase the Rus's, it will increase their armor and damage of all of the adjoining units that the Warrior Monk is around. So basically, the Warrior Monk hits something with its weapon, and then everything around it will get +2 damage and +1 armor for 10 seconds. And you can upgrade that to an additional 10 seconds, totaling in 20 seconds. So they're very, very strong. And in addition to all of those things, when it comes to infantry and cavalry, they get bombards that can shoot quite quickly because they have a unique ability to reduce the reload time by 25%. So economically, you can see that they can really focus and ramp up quickly, especially in their gold income and food income. And when it comes to their military, it's very broad and diverse, which is very cool. Now, the kind of downside is that they cannot produce any stone fortifications. They do get their really cool, unique fortified palisades, which allow them to create very strong wooden walls early and fast. They'll produce faster than a normal palisade wall, but it can be attacked by anyone, so there is that downside, whereas a stone wall can only be attacked by siege equipment or by artillery pieces. In addition to that too, while they do have these awesome wooden fortresses which replace outposts, those wooden fortresses will also boost your wood production, so there is a benefit in that. So while you do get all these kind of cons to their certain, I guess, shortcomings of using stone, you do get a lot of bonuses to it as well, right? With the fortified palisades and the wooden fortresses. But it's just kind of worth noting that when you look at the Rus, you're going to spend a lot of time with your scouts, and you're going to spend a lot of time trying to kill all of the animals across the map. And if you're not comfortable with that level of micro in the early game, it's really going to punish you in the late game, because using your scouts to kill those animals allows you to progress through the ages quicker. And you can then use those scouts to bring those carcasses back to your hunting cabins for more food. And another big con for the Rus is that in the early game, they actually kind of suffer when it comes to rushing. They do get early knights, which is really cool, and you can do some harassment with those early knights, but early knights are very easily countered with spearmen. And without the ability to heal themselves until the third age, it really suffers when you compare it to, say, the Royal Knight of the French, who can harass early and can regenerate some health passively until they get a monk on the table or a priest on the table that can heal their health. So They have a lot of trouble in the early game with rushing, and really your best tactic with the Rus is to turtle until a timed rush in the 3rd age, or wait until that 4th Imperial Age where you can pump out some really strong Streltsy and use some really good bombards to push the enemy. So if you are not comfortable with a slow starting faction as far as their ability to be aggressive, then I would say that the Rus might not be for you. But if you want a faction that can really hold its ground through the early portions of the game and then really come out of that final 3rd and 4th age screaming, then really truly Rus will be for you, because their late game punch is so devastating with the combined use of Streltsy and maybe even Spearmen to hold the front line, countering any kind of charges for you, while the Streltsy will literally just blow their way through everything. And as long as they're not moving, they'll get more and more damage, up to a maximum of 3 ticks on their really cool emplacement, which we'll show you in a little bit. Let's now move into some of those unique units since we've been talking about the Streltsy. And here we have the entire Rus military allied before us. And as far as the units go, majority of the Rus military is actually pretty standard. They don't get a whole ton of unique units, but they do get early access to units, upgrades to units to make them even better, and then one unit that doesn't necessarily say it's unique to the Rus, which makes me believe that there's another faction coming that's going to take advantage of these units. But let's just kind of go into this and dissect it all. So for the most part, when it comes to both the Spearmen and the Men-at-Arms, they're just standard fare, nothing crazy new or unique about them. They look awesome. They're probably one of my favorite looking units in the game, but just standard fare. Same thing here with both the crossbow and the archers, just your standard fare units. Even so, when we get into the horsemen on the right here, just standard units. No special upgrades, nothing like that. But when we take a look at the Knight for the Rus, we get a unit that they get access to in the 2nd Age. The only other faction that gets access to the 2nd Age Knight is the Royal Knight with the French. Now, the Knight with the Rus, for all intents and purposes, is exactly the same as every other faction. Like I said, you just get access to them in the early age. But the Rus do get 2 select unique technologies for their knight to give them more health and to have them do more damage in combat with their swords. Now, what's important about that is that the Rus knight will do more damage than almost any other knight in the game when it comes to just staying in combat. The French knight's going to get a bonus when it charges, and then it's going to lose that bonus. But the Rus knight has the benefit of getting that upgrade, and then I think it'll do something like 33 or 34 damage with its sword as it stays in combat, which is that's quite nice to have. So that's the other unique mechanic with the Rus's knights. But on the other end of the spectrum here, we have these guys, these horse archers. Now, the horse archer is a really cool unit. The only other faction that gets a horse archer is the Manjadai in the Mongolians. Now, the Mongolians get access to the Manjadai in the 2nd Age versus the Rus archer is accessible in the 3rd Age. There's also the camel archers for the Abbasids and the tower elephants for the New Delhi Sultanate. It's just worth kind of bringing up because I feel like someone will say that otherwise. Now, the horse archer actually does more per shot damage than the Manjadai, but the Manjadai shoots much faster, can shoot while moving, and overall is a pretty amazing unit. The Rus archer, though, is nice in that it only costs you a meager amount of food and wood versus the Manjadai, which costs you a higher amount of food and gold. So you can see how this is kind of splitting the hairs here, right? You're getting a unit that can shoot while moving, shoot faster, and it's going to cost you a little bit more, so you get a nice little value out of it, but the horse archer is still pretty good. Like I said, though, there is no unique icon for this. If you click on, let's just click on the Streltsy. You can see it's got that unique, this is unique to the Rus. So I think that the horse archer is another unit that will be coming in other factions. Now, as far as purely unique units to the Rus, we get the Streltsy, which are amazing gunpowder units. You can see that they've got a glow on them, and that is because they have this, the static deployment. Every 5 seconds that the Streltsys remain stationary increases its attack speed by 10% and damage by 3. And as you hover over this, it tells you which stage of static deployment you're at. So we get +9 to range damage and 30% reload speed. You can see right here, 51 hand cannon damage and 1.7 attack speed. Go ahead and just kind of move them forward a little bit. They'll drop that aura, And you can now see it's 42 hand cannon damage and 2 attack speed, which was just jumped up here to 45 with 1.9. So you can see how that's beneficial. And there it goes again. So it's a very, very nice unit. You can watch me use these in some of my Rus gameplays, and they just rip through men-at-arms, through knights, through everything. They are so devastating. They're really an amazing unit, and I love them a lot. The other unique unit is the Warrior Monk. Now, what makes these guys cool is that they are on a horseback, so they can get access to any of the relics on the map quickly and easily. And they have this little ditty, the Saint's Blessing. This will grant any unit around them within an aura around the Warrior Monk 2 damage and 1 armor. Very nice. This does this for 10 seconds, and you can get a technology that will further increase this by another 10 seconds. You could even target sheep and still get the blessing, so you can kind of bring sheep along with you as a kind of a cheap way to cheese that and get the blessing. But the Warrior Monk is very strong because it gives your entire front line a really nice tank ability as well as increasing their damage. But this is all of the unique units for the Rus. Even their artillery, for the most part, is very standard fare. What they really benefit from are a lot of unique technologies. So let's get into that next. Now, as far as unique technologies goes, there are a lot of little complexities with the Rus. And we're going to start off talking about not necessarily a technology, but a mechanic that does play very heavily into the gameplay of this faction. And it has to do with the bounty system. So we are at tier 3 of our bounty system, which I've talked about before in the overview. But essentially, as you kill sheep, deer, wolf, and boar, you will gain more bounty. And actually, every time you kill them, you'll gain gold. You can see that's the same value. You get 5, 10, 25, or 75 gold, depending upon the creature in which you kill. And as you progress through these tiers, 5, 10, and 15% villager food harvest rate is increased. And then the hunting cabins, which we're going to talk about in just a second, will also increase the amount of gold you generate, like I've said before. Now take a look at this hunting cabin. This is the high trade house, which is an economic landmark, which we'll get into in the next section here. But you can see there's this circle around it, and that shows you how much gold is being generated by the trees that were in this aura. And even if you cut down the trees, I deliberately had all my villagers kind of cut down a lot of the trees around here to exemplify this, it will still generate the same amount of gold had the trees still been there. So if I go over here to this location, this is generating 48 gold a minute. Even if I ate up all these trees, it would still generate that same amount of gold a minute. But going over here to this hunting cabin, which never had trees around it, you can see that there's no gold in this section, so no gold shall ever be generated from the hunting cabin. So that's how the hunting cabin and the bounty system work. They're very crucial to the Rus, especially in the early game. Now, as far as other true unique technologies go, let's take a look at the archery range. We're going to get 2 here. This one, double time, is going to give Streltsy the ability to increase their movement speed by 30% and speed up their static deployment time by 50% for 10 seconds, allowing you to really get these guys to move, displace, shoot, move, displace, shoot, all sorts of fun action, so you can get access to that static deployment, increasing their damage and their reload speed significantly. Also, they get mounted precision, increasing the weapon range of horse archers by 2, which is quite nice. I do like that a lot, but like I've said before, horse archers do suffer from the ability to not move and shoot, so you do have to be mindful of that. Second on the list here is the monastery. Now, as far as the majority of the technology here, it's pretty standard fare, but you get blessing duration, which is going to increase the saint's blessing that we talked about from the warrior monk for an additional 10 seconds. Very crucial and a really good one. Now, as far as your cavalry goes, like I was saying, you can really boost out those knights with the Boyar's Fortitude, increasing the health of the Rus Cav by 20. Now, that applies to all Rus cavalry. The veteran horseman, the knight, the scout, and the horse archer. So it's a very nice benefit, as well as the warrior monk, who counts as a cavalry unit. It's a nice way to give you a lot of stayability, especially with those monks in the later game. Knight Sabers here increases the melee damage of knights by 4. This is what it's going to help them hit a little bit higher into their bracket here. Next up is the Wooden Fortress. Now, the Wooden Fortress is nice here because you can make these and they will increase the output or the return of your lumber camps and town centers for wood by 20%. So you'll want to build these by your lumber camps as needed. But a unique kind of I guess, mechanic or technology to the Rus is the ability to create emplacements infinitely. Now, I'm not saying you can make like 500 arrow slits, but I can make both arrow slits and springald emplacements in this wooden fortress where otherwise I'd be limited to one or the other. Take, for example, this one, who's got none. This one, who's got just the arrow slits. And then this one, who has both arrow slits and springald attached to it. So it's quite a nice benefit to have because you can get a lot more punching power for each one of these wooden fortresses. Now, as far as the actual unique technologies, I have the ability to do more damage with the arrows fired from the fortress, and I can increase the sight range of these fortresses by 6 tiles, which is a nice little benefit as well. This also does apply to their keeps. So take, for example, this keep who has got both the bow and the springald cannon and springald attachments, and this one who's got none of them. So you can see that you can just put both on there. This is my way of just kind of exemplifying that. As far as the dock goes, we do get access to some unique stuff that we'll cover more in the Navy, but I wanted just to point out the clinker construction increases the health of the Lodya attack ship by 200. This will become a little bit more prevalent when we talk about the Navy, but just wanted to show it off here. And then for the High Armory, which is another landmark building, you'll get all these unique technologies for siege equipment. It's really what makes the siege equipment for the Rus very powerful. It increases the range of the springald by 1.5 tiles, the damage of the ram by 100%, which is very, very, very significant. The siege crew training, setup, and teardown speed of trebuchets and mangonels is instant, which is huge. This really allows you to get a spring on people with your mangonels and do a lot of damage, especially to massed infantry, which the Rus are going to be dealing with, trust me. And then lastly, fine-tuned guns, which reduces the reload speed of bombards by 25%. That is very significant because it makes your bombards extremely deadly come the late game. Let's talk about landmarks now with the second age, the feudal age landmarks of both the Golden Gate or the Kremlin. Now, the Golden Gate essentially acts as a market, allows the exchange of resources at a favorable rate, generates an additional exchange every minute. The way that this works is it generates a supply every minute. And as long as you have one of those supplies, you can do a resource exchange just like you would at a market where you swap. Either you sell 100 of one resource for 100 gold, or you buy 100 of one resource for 100 gold. This allows you to buy or sell at an additional 50%. So you'll basically say, okay, I'm going to sell this stone, this 100 stone, and I'm going to get 150 gold. I personally find it not that great, pretty lackluster. It can really help you out if you're focusing less on kind of internal defense. Maybe you're on an island map, but still, I find that Kremlin is just so strong as a really good early wooden fortress that you're getting in the second age that's going to help you put down a lot of early rushes. If people try to get in your face early as you move into that the third age, the Kremlin is going to really help you kind of level the playing field by being able to just fill it with your villagers and put down anything that gets in your face. Advancing into the third age, we get 2 more landmarks with the High Trade House. It generates gold like a hunting cabin with the value increased by 200%. And then it also spawns deer every 60 seconds. So it is a very strong economic landmark because you saw in the earlier portion of the video where I showed off my High Trade House, it was generating what, like 218 gold a minute? It is stupid good. In addition to giving you deer, which is going to add to your boon if you have not hit tier 3, which is very nice as well because killing those deer is also going to generate you more gold. I find it to just be such a strong resource drop-off point that also just constantly gives you nice passive gold income. Additionally, though, we have the Abbey of the Trinity. This acts as a monastery, can produce warrior monks at half the cost, and contains unique religious technologies. So the 2 technologies it gives you, the one is called Saint's Reach, which increases the range of Saint's Blessing by 3 tiles. It's okay. Most of the time you're going to be so up close and personal that increased range isn't going to be hugely beneficial. And then Saint's Blessing, which is going to increase the damage that your blessing does by 1. So what that means is rather than doing 2 damage and 1 armor, you'll get 3 damage and 1 armor. I personally, if that was 2 damage, 2 armor, I would find that to be more beneficial, giving a little bit more stability to the Rus line. In addition to, like I was saying, it's going, or like it says, it's going to be at half the cost. So that means that your 40 food, 200 gold. Monks are coming out at 20 food, 100 gold. While all that is nice, the high trade house just gets you so much economic ramp that I find it to be just so much better than the Abbey of the Trinity. You can definitely find uses for the Abbey of Trinity, but high trade house is what I would absolutely recommend. Advancing into the Imperial Age, we have the final landmarks for the Rus in the Spasskaya Tower, which is going to act as a keep with all weapon emplacements already in place. So that means it's going to have it's going to have cannon and springald as well as burning oil, which is cool and also has increased health. Lastly, we've got the High Armory, which is going to decrease the cost of siege engines in nearby siege workshops by minus 20%, and then contains unique siege engine technologies. Honestly, this one to me wins hands down, just because their only way to get access to the bombard reduction in its reload time, the instant deployment of your springalds and your trebuchets, the increased ram damage, the springald increased range is from the High Armory. If you don't build this, you don't get those technologies. And those are 4 pretty great technologies, especially that bombard one. So I find this one to be extremely valuable. But the Spasskaya Tower can still be very good if you're in a situation where you need a very strong defensive, not almost said keep, but defensive landmark to help fortify an expansion. Or you're really getting pushed hard and the Spasskaya Tower is going to give you a nice staying point. It can be definitely situational and beneficial, but I think 80-20 rule kind of falls here. 80% of the time I'm going to go with High Armory, 20% of the time going with Spasskaya. And if I click High Armory here, it's got an aura around it, and you can see that these are all 4 of my siege workshops. I build them out for this video so they have the roads in between. I don't know, it's stupid. But if I build this right here, all those siege workshops are going to benefit from a 20% reduction in their cost. So those are my picks for the best landmarks. Let's move very quickly over to the Navy because it is very unique for the Rus. So here we have the Rus Navy, and it's very unique in that every single ship is the same ship. And well, here's what I mean by that. You've got a trade ship here that can also turn into a fishing boat, a transport ship, a demolition ship, or an attack ship. All I have to do, press this button. It's going to cost me 25 wood and take 20 seconds, but the ship will take what it currently was and transform into an attack ship or maybe a fishing boat. This is really nice when you are on, say, a island map. You set up a very strong fishing economy and man, you're getting attacked. Well, you can convert your entire fishing economy into attack ships just like this. And it's done. There you go. It's good to go, which is really, really, really cool, actually. I like that a lot. So you do have the attack ship here. It is not very powerful, and it's the only ship you get. And obviously, this is really going to be outclassed in the later portions of the game. So you're really going to have to be very careful with the Navy of the Rus. You do get cool things like the demolition ship. It's going to be doing some good damage here, right? Of course, doing a nice 200 damage to warships, 500 total damage coming out of this bad boy. But the big boy in the Navy for the Rus is its fishing economy. Your fishing economy for the Rus can just take off. And the reason why is because you can get access to deep sea fish without having to set up a dock close by. Take a look at this fishing boat. The Lodya fishing boat has got 39 fish on it. Once it reaches 40 fish, it will just automatically deposit them into your stockpile. So I'm going to right click here. Watch, he'll cast his net. Oh, he hit 40 and he recasts his net and keeps going. So this allows you to just take advantage of really deep fishing locations and just bolster your food economy. And furthermore, let's say, I really need this food right now or someone's coming to attack. I can right click and he'll automatically deposit what's in his hold into your stockpile. So it's a really cool capability here. And just to reiterate one more time, they do get the clinker construction, which is going to increase the health of your attack ships by 200, making them go up to a nice 600 health, which is very, very needed as they get outclassed in the later ages of attack ship. But that is the Rus Navy, and it is quite interesting, if not a little weak in the later game, but that fishing economy is really going to help you out. Now, as far as army compositions go for the Rus, what you really want to rely on are those early age knights. in the beginning kind of portions of the game as you hit into the second and third age. Really, you're going to get a lot of benefit from these guys if you couple them with archers. Archers are going to take care of any and all spearmen you're going to play against, because as you know, they're going to get a bonus versus light and melee infantry. Now, as you push into that third age before you hit the fourth, a real common tactic is to put these two together. You've got some really strong mobile destructive force with the cavalry, and then with your horse archers, you can use them to kind of get into the back line and kill off any crossbowmen, any other archers, or any other siege equipment. And the big way you would do this is you would have your cavalry charge forward, and you'd have your horse archers go to the flanks so that they can actually hit into archers as best as possible. And a lot of my kind of forays with this, I've made a really big mistake of keeping everything together, and the archers kind of just hang back here and shoot into a front line of, say, men-at-arms, which is not going to be super beneficial. You want to take advantage of the fact that these guys, while they cannot do bonus damage towards light infantry, they can still do a raw damage of 14. Getting them on the flanks of any army you're engaging enables you to, hey, get back, the little guy, enables you to actually do damage to their archers or back line. And the biggest thing to support your military is these warrior monks. Get them in alongside your cavalry. It's called the Rus Cavalry Rush, and it helps you out a ton because these guys are going to be supporting this pocket of your line. Depending on how close your archers are, that Saint's Blessing is going to hit them as well, further increasing their damage. As you push into the fourth age, though, really, the name of the game, it's Streltsy. These guys are just so deadly. And you can have a nice front line of spearmen and Streltsy, and you're just going to be able to hold the line. Because what you can do here is, oh my god, horse archers, stop being greedy. I know we just talked about you. You press V, you get those guys in place, and the Streltsy are just going to be able to just decimate everything that kind of comes their way. I would still keep some units like knights to kind of keep this this unit kind of protected on its flanks. But really, warrior monks, Streltsy, and spearmen are really going to carry you into that later portions of the game, and also support them very well with bombards and mangonels, especially if you're playing a Rus mirror match where it's you versus other Rus. Mangonels are going to eat up your opponent's Streltsy, and if they happen to have mangonels, you can use your cavalry, your mobile cavalry elements to go shut those mangonels down. But that kind of covers the army comp. Let's go into a real quick early game build for how to build out the Rus, because it can be a little tricky if you're new to them. Now, as far as your early build kind of order with the Rus, things are pretty standard fare, right? You're going to be doing your sheep farming, you're going to build a house, stuff like that. You're going to use your scout, go find some sheeps, bring them on back to your town center before your villagers finish killing their first sheep or so. And then from there, you definitely want to make a hunting cabin. And the reason behind that is it's going to give you passive gold income. And then make a lumber camp, because now you need to start getting lumber. Lumber is a really big part of the Rus because so many buildings, like their defensive ones, rely solely on lumber. So making sure you have a good lumber economy quick is nice. You don't have to worry about a gold mining post in the first age, which is actually quite nice. You just really need to worry about getting these sheep into your town center, a hunting cabin online because it's going to generate you some passive gold, and then you want to take your scout and start hunting deer. You want to kill the deer closest to you first, obviously. Maybe pick up any more sheep that you can find in the near vicinity. And then after that, once your hunting cabin is done, use the hunting cabin to make 2 more scouts. 3 or 4 scouts is a very good little pocket of scouts to have for the Rus, because what you're going to do with these scouts is hunt around the map for deer. That's the big goal. Remember, in Age of Empires 4, carcasses do not decay, so killing a deer in the wild is really not that big of a deal, but really you want to focus on maybe killing your opponent's deer first. This way, if you are playing against a Rus faction, you're negating their bounty income, which is good, right? You want to be able to let yours take off above theirs. So you're going to use these 3 scouts, scout across the map, find your opponent, see what they're building out tech-wise as far as military goes once they get into the second age, but mainly go and hunt these deer. So once you get a really good amount of food income from that, and that's actually probably going to push you into your first tier, just killing the sheep that are by your town center and using your scouts to go find more deer, you of course want to get a really nice solid 6 to 8 people on food, with about, like, I don't know, another 6 to 8 people on wood, because again, your gold income is okay right now. You don't need to worry about it. You might as well just use this time to bank up some lumber in the meantime. As soon as you get enough to get to the second age, build the Kremlin. Again, that's my personal preference. I always like the Kremlin over the other landmark, and get ready to start teching into some military. So once I get to the second age though, what I like to do is make sure I've set up a wooden fortress by my camp, because that's pretty crucial. And I want to get access to the professional scouts technology in the cabin. This will allow me to take my scouts that have been killing all these deer and bring them back to my hunting cabin to enable me to get more food in that kind of early game. And again, negating that entire resource now from my opponent. Killing them, they can still harvest them, but at least if I use the professional scouts, I can bring those carcasses back to my hunting cabins to let my villagers really profit off of it. And another big thing too is you really want to make sure that you have not let your military tech fall to the wayside, because this is the time when people might start getting a little antsy with you. So take a look at what your opponent has. You don't need to necessarily make a barracks unless you're playing against the French. You are definitely going to be dealing with knights if you're fighting the French, but I like to just go with the stables and an archery range, 2 of each. Stables is going to enable me to get some early knights out, which are going to help out against anything I'm probably fighting, and then the archers are going to kill any spearmen that my enemy is going to deploy to fight my knights. That's, I feel, a good first 4 military buildings. But the most important thing to know in the second age, build a mining camp ASAP, because you cannot rely off of the passive income of hunting things, because you've just hunted the map clean pretty much, minus boars. So that's your quick little early build order. From there, I would just pretty much look to see what your opponent's doing, look to see if you're going to turtle it or counter against it, whatever it is. Of course, use your Kremlin to the best of its ability, and those wooden fortresses, you've got those as a nice little fallback point for your villagers that are out hunting wood, that are out gathering wood for you. And also make wooden fortresses by any external hunting cabins you might use to grab up any deer carcasses nearby that you don't want to have your scouts grab, or again for maybe say berry bushes, whatever it is. Those wooden fortresses are quite strong, and they're a really good early deterrent to a lot of rushing. So there you have it for the Rus. Hopefully this guide helped break down a lot of the mystique on how to get into this faction. It is one of my absolute favorite factions, not only because they're stupid strong right now, but because aesthetically it is a really, really cool faction to me. I've always really liked the history of the Kievan Rus, which is not really exactly the same thing here, but still, I really enjoy this one a lot. It's the one I main next to the French, and I think that it's one that once you can kind of break down how that early build order works, how you kind of manage your scouts and hunting a lot of deer across the map, you can really find a lot of strength in the Rus. And what I like about them the most is in the mid to late game, if you get pushed hard, they can recover from it quickly, because if you keep your economy online. I just find so much advantage from the passive gold income that the hunting cabins can generate by just placing pockets of them around the map if you need to, when you're really starting to hurt for gold. And that allows you to get out your knights, your Streltsy, which can really turn the tide of a lot of battles when it comes to ages 4 if you're playing with the Streltsy. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions about playing the Rus or any comments you'd like to make as far as other techniques or tactics you've learned, please by all means share them in the comment section below. I'm all about trying to disseminate as much information as possible. But thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.